Well, welcome to Weekdays Live. This is the Friday show. This is CJ Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice, and your host for today's show. And again, trying to just keep all this organized all at once. It's a challenge. Anyway, we've got some interesting news, some good news, a little scary news as this is the time we're in. And I do want to say today that I'm starting to get some information from people that say that they're talking about wins. So I really want to focus next week on the kind of wins that we're getting in this country, and whether it's a good delay, whether it's in court, whether it's with a qualified written request or a threatening letter back to the bank, whatever it is. I'd really like to hear it because the people need to know that it is worth it. And I'm telling you right now, it is worth it. I know enough, I'm hearing enough feedback that it is definitely worth the fight. It's worth the fight to keep your home. So today, I really wanted to share with you some things that are going on. Of course, we've got our overreaching agencies, and we're going to be going through that. And then you'll have those links that you can explore. But I just wanted to share yesterday the links that we had from John O'Brien's. One of our contacts has already sent those links out with John O'Brien's video, his recommended anti-foreclosure law, that the city of Lynn passed. And the fact sheet for it has already sent that out to all of his supervisors, DA. He's got this mailing list and he's constantly feeding them information. So if in your county, and I'm going to work on that this weekend for me, in my county, I'm going to get a little group mailing list of all the supervisors' emails, the district attorney, the recorder, city council, can't hurt, let's get the cities involved, the sheriff, the county attorney, because they're always asked by the supervisors and the recorder, what do you say? They always go to their attorney. So might as well just copy them right up front on all of these updates and ideas and keep that information flowing. I believe that is, if you want to call it an armchair activism, that we can easily handle, that will be very straightforward. Once you get those emails on like a boilerplate email list that you can just save and you can just activate it anytime you want to, then when there's links on the live stream that you want them to watch, sublinks or even part of the show at certain minutes, just send it to them. Let's start feeding all of our elected officials this information. They talk about how many repetitions it takes to change a habit. I've heard 19 times. So we just keep planting the seeds. We just keep watering them. They're going to read something. This. They're going to start becoming aware of what we're talking about and what the solutions could be. I really don't think it could hurt. So that's just my little quick encouragement for today. So we're going to talk about some new and upcoming actions, and I'm going to share those with you and also read a couple of emails that I've gotten because I think you really need to hear them. So it's troubling times, it's good times. It was a good time, it was a bad time. And we're going to just keep focusing on the fact that every day is a new day and a new chance to make more of a difference. So what I'd like to do today is start with the SEC. It turns out that the SEC, actually the people in charge, have declined to prosecute. And this is the article just posted yesterday. And this is a 3-year effort by Kathleen Fury to hire officials of official responsibility. And she wanted to find out, to investigate what is going on. And it turns out in August or September of 2007, she approached the assistant regional director, her level 2 supervisor, to discuss the investigation of, and I'm going to show it to you in a minute, but the name is redacted, so they don't know who it is. The name's been whited out. But the investigation seemed to be floundering, just like many investigations of other investment companies or advisors had floundered in the past. So you've got, obviously, collusion. It shouldn't be any surprise to us the way they've bungled Bernie Madoff's investigation. The fact is, it's just more and convincing evidence that the agencies in the government are connected to the corporations, and the whole point is to protect the large corporations, and in this case, investment companies and advisors, from any prosecution. They're the shield. The government is the shield for the big companies so that they can fleece the people. That's the answer. And so she believes that name redacted had violated both the Investment Company Act of 1940 and the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. And they just said, we don't do investment management cases. We're just not going to do it. And in the end, she ends up having to be turned into a whistleblower. This is truly news only for those people that don't understand that this is what we're facing. So maybe this will help. Here's more fuel for this fire. And here is the name redacted lawsuit that you're welcome to read, 14 pages. Here's the link to make it simple and easy for people to look at. So again, it's either going, and we're going to talk about overreach in a minute. It's either overreach by agencies that control the people, or it's protection, underreach, by agencies that control corporations. Let's think about that a minute. Makes sense, doesn't it? So here's overreach. I'm not going to play the videos, not this one. You can listen to them. That's why the links are there. But here you've got Child Protective Services. She goes into to get a second opinion for the baby, and obviously somebody calls, and the CPS cops swoop in and grab the child. She's visiting here for an hour. But I do think you need to hear what her attorneys are saying. You really need to listen to this one. This one's important. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's good, bad, and you'll understand what I mean in a minute.
The facts and avoid the original rush to judgment that was started in this case.
Yeah, on behalf of the attorney for the child, I must say that I felt that, and there was two of them actually, that they listened to some of the things, and we showed them some documents. So that was definitely a unique part of this case too, as well as the media involvement and the involvement of the Russian consulate.
Well, it's a great outcome for Anna and Alex, but I think one of the questions that still remains is, was the standard of imminent risk met when CPS and when police went into their home on Wednesday and took Sammy?
I think one of the things that came out in the hearing today was the admission by the attorney for the child that there really wasn't such an imminent risk, that they'd originally wanted to do something, and now they've been pretty candid and said it's not really necessary to do it today.
Well,
That's like shaking your head.
yeah, I want to be real clear. There was never a level of imminent risk to justify what those officers did and what that social worker did with that child, in my opinion. And I practiced in this area of law for 14 years on the imminent risk side of what you're talking about. And it's in addition to, not in addition, but part of 21 years of doing the juvenile defense law. So there never was, and there never will be, and it was overreaching and a rush to judgment, as he called it a moment ago, and that's what's got to stop. That stuff's got to stop. Now, I don't know if you've heard this, but for all this joy that this family got to experience today and all their friends and supporters who were here, one of the most poignant moments was coming out and being very happy for my client, but I heard someone crying. And I thought, my God, why is anybody crying? We just got the kid back. And I looked down the hall, and there's another woman who's crumpled to her knees because her child's been taken. And I can tell you, after 21 years of practice in this system, that I would bet my bottom dollar that there's something I wouldn't like about what happened in her case, and you wouldn't like about what happened in her case. So somebody really needs to, at some point, look at this system like they did at the IRS many, many years ago, and take a close scalpel look at what's going on. That person's cries really tamped down my exuberation over what we were able to accomplish for our clients.
So what's the next step? I mean, I know this is not over, no.
The next step is in 30 days we'll have another hearing. I am hopeful that at that time this will be put to bed and the government will step out of these people's lives and allow them to get back to do what they want and what they think is right.
Poor Anna. Oh, there they are.
And so you see, the government intrudes. The person's lives are turned upside down. The attorney says, look, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know that this is not right and it needs to stop. And there you go. it ain't going to stop. The government just steps in, and then the person's life has to deal with it. This is the overreach that we're suffering from, and we do need to step up. I'm afraid at almost every level, every agency, and say, wait a minute, let's look closely at what your mandates are and what does constitute urgency, and let's put some common sense back into it, rather than just grabbing and asking questions later, because that's what it seems they're doing. I did want to bring this to your attention because this is an article just posted actually today about the military actually states that there is no presidential authorization needed to quell civil disturbances. And one of the things I find very troubling about civil disturbances is just the thought of the kinds of issues that could arise when the we have a bank holiday, like with Cyprus, when the banks are shut because, oh, whoops, the bank went, belly up, and so now you can't get your money. And what happens to the flow of goods and services, and what happens if suddenly all the store shelves are empty? I mean, we already know, we've already seen this in small ways in riots, when the stores are, everything is gone in the stores. And what happens, when people get hungry, and if the supply can't get picked back up again? We are at risk of that kind of a failure, in my opinion, in particular because virtually our entire food supply for this country is just in time. We only have a few days, if that, of food in the stores, and you already know what it's like. Just the threat or just a joke saying that there's going to be a shortage on pick anything, and suddenly the shelves are empty because people are rushing to the stores and just buying huge quantities, whether they need it or not. And so that's one of the reasons I'm wanting to focus on the civil disturbances, because that's the police breaking into your house. It's military lockdowns. We've been seeing this happen. This is an interesting article about it. What I wanted to point out, a couple of things in the article. Please read it. Look at the links. The War Powers Act, the Insurrection Act of 1807. In essence, the policy change seeks to supersede the Posse Comitatus, the 1878 law, which forbids the military from being involved in domestic law enforcement, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or acts of Congress. And so this is not just police action, this is military. This is, the kinds of things we saw in Watertown just last month. So this is of major concern to me, and I believe that it should be a major concern to everybody. This is going to affect everybody in the country, regardless of whether their home is in foreclosure or not. This is another symptom of what's wrong, where foreclosures and fraud, that's just a symptom of what's wrong. And what's wrong is really the control, the overview, the way our money works, and the way the power structure in this country works. Well, actually in the world. So these are the things that we really need to be aware of. Here's just a quick article about the fact that government contracts are being awarded to private contractors. And Northrop Grumman announced its participation earlier this week, and that it's starting the security accreditation process, which is required for the Homeland Security Program. And this is the Science Applications International Corp., SAIC, is joining a roster of companies involved in a program to protect the U.S. infrastructure against cyber threats. So again, do we really have the threats? Who is the biggest threat? These days, who knows? The fact is there's going to be more and more and more censorship, lockdown, both on the internet, on what we can say and do. Obviously, they're looking at the AP. All of this, our news, we're all basically, I feel like they're trying to push us, into a box and slam the lid down. And these are just signs of that. In fact, somebody sent me a little chart I'd like to share with you right now. That this is a fascinating chart. And it's helping me to actually start to place these miscellaneous facts. So if there really is a ruling class, which I'm quite sure there are, we're now seeing more and more articles about it on the internet. They talk about it. We see the effects of it. And so you'll see that the ruling class owns and controls the corporations. It'll bankroll and bribe the politicians. We've seen that. And together, the corporations and politicians have created the military-industrial complex, which sacrifices the citizens. You know, we read all the time about governments killing off millions of people in all these other countries. And we must have been thinking that, well, it wouldn't happen here. And I think we need to consider that. I think we need to take off our rose-colored glasses, and we need to go, now, wait a minute. This is exactly what governments are doing all over the world. Let's look at this. Think about it. Start mulling this over. Share this with your family, friends. Get their arguments back, because initially they're not going to like to hear this. Nobody wants to hear this. I don't want to hear this. But I do believe that we need to look at this. So now you've got the corporations controlling the media, okay, and global banking, and that they coerce and influence the citizens. That makes sense. You've got the politicians overseeing the courts and the government, which is legislative and executive, and they control and punish the citizens. Now, one of the things I'm not sure about this, as I look at it and think about it, I thought this ruling class were the bankers. So I believe that this should be probably up here, global banking. They're the ruling class. But then that's just my little thought of change. Anyway, it's an interesting chart. Wanted to get it into the live stream show so that you could see it yourself and mull it over, share it, think about it. So anyway, back to overreach and interesting facts. So here's an interesting fact. And it's interesting because you've got the government aiding and abetting a very wealthy corporation at the detriment of the taxpayer. So on Apple, this is the point. And the net point is they've got $102 billion in offshore money. They don't want to bring it back because if they did that, they'd have to pay 35% taxes. But because of who they are, they have a 1.9% interest rate available to them. So why use the money if you can just borrow at all the money you need for a dividend at 1.9%? So why pay an outrageous tax bill when a company with a AA rating like Apple's can borrow money at 1.9% interest? So now, why can't you and I borrow money at 1.9% interest for our home loans? Why can't they refinance all of our home loans? If they refinanced everybody's homes at 1.9%, most people would be able to just keep the house whether it was underwater or not. They could afford that. So we don't get a break, but the big bucks get a break. And that's one of the real inequalities and unfairnesses about how the money is used in this country. And they pick winners and losers. So the big corporations continuing to win while all the people continue to lose. So let's review this chart. So yeah, the corporations, get all the breaks, and everybody is using the citizens as a trough to feed at. We're just slop for the pigs. Sorry. It just occurred to me. Okay, I've got a series of little links today I want to talk about briefly. I'm not going to really show the videos. You can watch them yourself, but I really think you need to understand that it has been exposed, this offshore, the shadow banking, the offshore banks, the what am I'm thinking of? I'm trying to think of the where they store all their money, you know, the where they avoid taxes. And so here you've got in 2010, this is an article from 2010, the shadow banking system and how 1/3 of all the wealth in the world is held in offshore banks. And so there you go. In the Cayman Islands, they've got the hedge funds and all the accounts and all the wealth, and they're all offshore so that they don't have to pay taxes. So what's wrong with this picture? And that was in 2010. That was 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. So there's the first article you can read about. Here's another article. This is 2012. This is over a year ago. So here's another article about all the trillions of dollars in offshore banks and how the global elite are holding 18 trillion. They don't want to put them in any place where they get taxed. And so, and of course, keep in mind that the U.S. gross domestic product in 2010 was only 14.5 trillion. I think it's about 16 trillion now. These are estimates. And so they're hiding the money in offshore banks, privacy, and low taxation. So the elite get paid from us as we pay the central banks our interest, and they're owned by the banks, and the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Bilderbergs, Warburgs. So we're harvested. That's a Catherine Austin Fitts word. We're being harvested. Everything we say and do is being harvested. And if you're like me, that's unsettling to really find out about it, and it makes us want to fight back. So this is 2012. So now there's a second article. Here's a third article. This is just yesterday, and the American Empire and the End of Sound Money. So here we go again. This is the Great Deformation, and this is how money is no longer sound, and it isn't, because money is debt. They create money with debt, or just with a click of a key, and you got another $1 trillion. It's a computer entry. It's you and I have to expend our energy, time, and resources that we've got, intelligence, whatever we've got, to try to pay back interest on air that we borrowed. And one of the articles that I got from happens to be South African real estate investor magazine actually made a very good point, and that is, if the banks never lent any of us any real money that they had, any of their assets to buy our homes, then how do we have a loan? How can that be called a loan when they just created the money off, credit off of our signature? It was a data entry. And I do believe that as the people understand that this sound money, what used to actually work, it was basically a confidence system, because everybody had confidence in it, and I think it will collapse. I do. And when it collapses, it's going to hurt. So we need to protect ourselves in different ways. And someone emailed me a letter yesterday that I'm talking about, want to research this weekend. It's about how we can significantly opt out of the system. If you see the house of cards is going to fall down, then how do you get yourself out? And we've been talking about that. I hope to really focus on that next week. How are people opting out? How are people winning in court? How are people keeping their houses? What information can we collect and learn from so that we can use it ourselves and spread it to the nation so everybody can use it? Now, here are just a couple of videos that came across my desk. And this is Lord James of Blackheath. He's over in London and England. And he has documented $15 trillion fraud done by, he claims, Bush, the Fed, and the European banks. I don't doubt it. And what's interesting, one of the most interesting things about all of this, because of course we already know that the business model is fraud. They're all just going to lie, cheat, and steal because that's the way it's set up for them. But what's interesting about this, this was posted May 15, 2013, but he did this last year, and here's his video. This is a little video. You'll have the link. It's about 11 minutes. He's exposing the $15 trillion fraud, and this was done, uploaded February 17, 2012. So, what has happened? I can't tell you how many links I get from people, contacts. Everybody's sending me stuff. It's fabulous. But it's 2010, 2011, early 2012. And yet it doesn't feel, nothing's happened. Nothing's happened. They talk about, oh, this is really going to be a big deal. No. Oh, look at this. FHFA is suing all these banks. So? And nothing changes for the people. And that is actually just an indication of the corruption and high level of it, and it's very depressing. And the fact is, we're looking for what then, that keeps pushing me. What can we do that will take effect? That's why we're focusing on the fraud, because they cannot deny that. They cannot take it back. It's sitting there on our records, and it is fraudulent. It's illegal. It violates the penal code. And that's why I feel it's so important that we push for criminal charges. Read my lips. Criminal. Because as they get civil charged and the banks pay $8 billion here, and who cares? They're making up the money anyway. They can just go pull it out of the Fed. They've already pulled $16 trillion out. So what's another $1 trillion? They can pull out $1 trillion and give it to everybody. They could. And that would probably actually help the economy. But they're not going to do that because they don't really want to help the economy. They want to squash the people into the box. That's really what they're doing. And we need to understand that. So there's those issues about banking. And then, of course, here is the latest and greatest on the big banks getting a break. Okay, so now this is a break in the Dodd-Frank rules. This was to oversee the, increase the transparency of derivatives, force them to actually get more bank quotes so that everybody could see what's going on. And of course, they've lobbied. And of course, under pressure and money, it's either pay them off or scare them off. From Wall Street lobbyists, federal regulators have agreed to soften a rule intended to rein in the banking industry's domination of a risky market. Yeah. So there you have it. We have actually the seeds. They're starting to be little plants. We're seeing these plants grow, and it's the destruction of this country. These are the seeds of destruction, because every time they can keep playing in the dark, they're going to go bankrupt. They are going to gamble. They're going to ruin this monetary system planet-wide. And the whole thing is going to collapse down on everybody. This is really what we have to face and what we're looking at. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. And then here is a very interesting chart. This is a comment about, is inequality hurting the U.S. economy and the recovery? And the chart I found really interesting, because they're talking, we've heard things saying, well, the middle class is being destroyed. And I totally agree. Now, what this chart does not cover, so please always recognize that the entity, a very large entity that's being left out of all of these charts, are the self-employed. These are the small business owners. These are every agent, every loan officer in real estate. These are small businesses. People doing fingernail polish, people doing all kinds of things. The people running the small business, which is the lifeblood of this country, are not included. So let's look at what's included. And what they've got is basically job description. This is a job skill graph. And so in 1983, you've got low skill occupations at 15%, middle skill, if you will, middle class at 59%, high skill at 26%. And now in 2012, last year, low skill has increased by 3%, middle skill has dropped by 14% down to 45%, so it's less than half, and high skill has increased. So this is why It's gone up 11%. This is why there's so much demand for the high skill coming. Typically, they're looking for visas, to come in from other countries. That's why people are flooding in from India. They have the skills, the programming, engineering, these high skills that our schools aren't producing. Our kids don't get that because they're not getting either the education that they need, the training that they need, or don't have the drive. I'm not sure. Why? Because high skill occupations are in high demand. But it takes effort and diligence to get the training and the understanding and the experience that are needed for that. So one of the things that I've seen in the past that would help this country shift our ability as a country is to get our high schools connected with our businesses that want and will hire these high skill occupations. Apple, Google, I think of those because they're basically in this area, but there's a lot of manufacturing, high tech industry around the country that could partner with high schools. So if you have a chance to make a suggestion or plant that idea in somebody's mind, let's try to spread that idea. Remember, we just saw something a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to bring it up again when we look at aquaponics, that there's a connection between a company and the high school, and they're doing a project together. Those kids will then really start to get the skills and understanding and the work ethic that's going to be needed to actually fill some of these jobs, so we can fill them with our people instead of with foreigners. No offense, but let's try to help the home team first. That's sort of my thought on that. Now, this is real estate. Here we go on real estate. This is one of the highest priced properties. It's a home. They've listed it for $190 million. It's believed to be the most expensive home listed in the market now in the U.S. And just because it's listed for that does not mean it's going to sell for $190 million. So mark my words, I doubt it. However, as you look down through the article, there are some really interesting issues. And the bottom line is, you don't really have appraisals on these properties. What's there to compare with? Virtually nothing. And many of these are purchased with cash. Sorry. And so last year, for example, hedge fund executive John Paulson, bought a 90-acre ranch in Aspen, Colorado for $41 million. And guess who he bought that ranch from? From Saudi prince. From a Saudi prince. So we've already got billions of dollars of foreigners owning our property, and they're selling it just like a normal seller. Interesting. But the home was listed for $135 million. And so obviously listed 135, sell at 41. Whatever. It gets attention, and I think that's the main issue. Stick a stupid price on it, get everybody scoffing, but everybody will look. That gets that out there. And then, of course, if someone really is interested, make an offer. So here you've got high-end real estate from between the haves, catching, the attention. And then here's a picture I was sent yesterday from Bernal Heights. Bernal Heights is an area in San Francisco, and anybody that doesn't live in the city thinks of San Francisco as very wealthy. And in general, it is, but it doesn't mean that they don't have less wealthy areas. And Bernal Heights, that's where they're selling. They do this competition to win a dream house. You can send in your ticket, you can buy a ticket, you can gamble to see if you can get this or $4 million in cash. And yet, look what's happening. And Occupy Bernal has been extremely active, along with several other neighborhood home groups, ACE, Occupy Bernal. There's a whole bunch of activists in San Francisco trying to keep people in their homes, fighting basically Wells Fargo. And this is the trouble. We've got the super ultra wealthy. That's why I wanted to talk about the inequality. It's spreading. You've got this group, and then you've got this group, the people that are just falling, and the middle class is just getting torn apart. Most of them are just going to get crushed, lose the houses, lose the jobs, lose their business. When you lose a business, where does that even show up? Doesn't even show up. I'd love to see a chart of how many small business owners have lost their business. That would be absolutely scary, I swear to you. And so you can read the article, and the prices, of course, are going up and up and up. And so what happens with the loan modifications? The bank goes, why would I deal a loan mod with you? I'm going to just take it back in foreclosure and get a lot more money, or force these people to sell their houses. And this is part of the problem. As prices go up, banks get less workable. Stands to reason, but doesn't mean that I like it. Here's an interesting article. Remember, I've talked about, this is another quick update, low-hanging fruit. You mark my words, don't you do anything that's going to get them on your tail, because they will put you in prison, just like that. We're struggling to get them to look at the fraud on the bank side of the banks. But here you go. This guy was the president of the Arizona Association of Mortgage Brokers. And he pled guilty, so now he's 1 year in prison, conspiring to commit, and then they've got him on wire fraud. And what they claim that he did, probably did, is he had straw buyers to purchase homes they were not qualified for in order to make the commission and fees. And so of course those commissions and fees are now deemed fraudulent. And inflated home prices, low doc requirements. Now, did the broker make up the low doc requirements? Where did low doc requirements come from? Let me think. The banksters. The lenders themselves said, this is what we want you to sell. So he did. And now they're saying, wait a minute. You have a fraudulent scheme right here during this crisis. And so, the bottom line is, I'd like to know more of the facts. That's my bottom line. Because the bottom line is, exactly how did they defraud? So I'm not really sure. And if, of course, the straw buyer purchased home and then just didn't pay for it, and then they discovered they never even was a real buyer, they forged documents. Remember, we read somebody else, another mortgage loan woman, I think, forged financial documents for herself to buy a house, and so, of course, she's in prison. So not to say that these aren't wrong, that they're not crimes, but they are going to get hammered. The people are going to get hammered. Remember that chart? We're going to get punished. Now, you don't see this punishment arrow going over here, do you? You don't see any arrows. There's no arrows going, up from the court over here and bam, down to the corporation. No punishment there. Interesting, isn't it? I can't help but put these things together. Now, I have been saying for years, the banks are dominating the market. They play the wholly owned subsidiary shell game. You've heard me say that before. And this is exactly what they're doing. And it's not just the banks, but it's the title companies. And let's see, who put together MERS? Oh, yeah, banksters and, title companies. Stewart Title, one of the founding members of MERS. So here we've got Fidelity Title. Do they belong to MERS? Yes. Don't they all? All the title companies, all the banks. In fact, we've had guests on the air that have said, well, the title companies are just the bank's bookies. Okay, so think of this as a bank bookie. Now, I got this through the real estate information that hits my email as I'm a broker. And so here's breaking news. This was posted yesterday. Fidelity, that's Fidelity National Title, is competing directly with real estate agents for the tight inventory of available homes for sale. Did you know that Fidelity National Title owns 100% of at least one California real estate brokerage company? That's J. Rockcliffe Inc. is a Fidelity-owned company. According to their own website, they are one of the fastest-growing real estate companies in California with offices in 8 cities and have hundreds of agents. And let me think, who has access to all of the documents? Fidelity. Interestingly, the J. Rockcliffe website does not appear to disclose the Fidelity ownership. They learned of this ownership through the Affiliated Business Arrangement Disclosure Statement. And in the document, they disclose that they own 100% of the real estate brokerage firm and thus compete directly with agents and brokers in the market. So you know what that tells me as a broker? Because I never liked Fidelity anyway, to use them for escrow. I greatly prefer First American. They just do a better job. But nevertheless, every time an agent or a broker uses Fidelity National Title for their transaction, you are feeding your competition. And here is that affiliated business arrangement. Now, of course, they have name redacted because this is an actual disclosure statement for a real client of this agent's and that he's sharing with us, and it's from J. Rockcliffe. And it's required in the real estate transaction that if any of the parties that are involved, like J. Rockcliffe, which is the listing or selling broker, whichever side they're on, whichever side that agent is on, they listed the house or they're representing the buyer or seller, they have to disclose this affiliated business arrangement. So look at what is owned by Fidelity. This is to give you notice that J. Rockcliffe is 100% of which is owned by Fidelity National Financial Inc., FNF, has a business relationship with the following settlement servicer providers. And so all of these are 100%, except Pacific Coast Title, it's only 40%. All the rest of them are 100% owned by Fidelity National Title, a subsidiary of FNF. And so you've got Chicago Title, Fidelity National Title, Fidelity National Title Insurance Company, Ticor Title, Ticor Title Company of California, Fidelity National Disclosure Source, Fidelity National Home Warranty, and Pacific Coast Title. And all of these are subsidiaries of FNF. I'm telling you, the banks and the title companies have all the money, all the expertise, all the resources, and they will take over any and every market that they want to. So agents, watch out. Buyers and sellers, watch out. Pretty quick, you're not going to be able to escape being represented by some bankster because they'll push all the other agents and brokerages out. You mark my words. This is how it works. When fraud is a business model, then it pushes out legitimate businesses. There isn't any way around it, and that's really part of the sad truth. So what I wanted to show now, let's move on into some new things. What can we expect? What are we doing? And people are stepping up. I already told you that Jed actually forwarded those links from yesterday to his representatives in the county. So let's do the same. Let's put our email drafts together with all of these email links on the same one. Let everybody know you're letting everybody know. That's highly recommended. And then put those links in for John O'Brien's video and his anti-foreclosure statute ordinance, and for the city of Lynn, and also the fact sheet. This is what someone else is doing. I asked them to share. They're busy. People are busy. That's fine. I'll share. I'm sharing now for everybody, okay? Today. Anyway, this is a channel. This is Expose the Wrongful Foreclosure TV trailer. And this comes from what I've been asking. Remember on the Update Friday? I wanted you to share us your story. It's good, bad, or ugly. And send us a video of any foreclosure fiasco, just your fraudulent documents, your discussion of what you've done, how you've been treated. I'm going to read an email that was sent to me. This person should just read that email on the air, even without their picture. We don't necessarily want to see the person, although seeing the people is really enjoyable and fun, but we really want to get out to everyone in a link that's easily sentable around the planet, that this is happening to thousands, millions of people. It's wrong, and we need to stop it. So what this person has agreed to do and started, and this is what they're doing. They have this foreclosure TV channel. They're taking the brunt off of me, and I do appreciate that. And if you send me your videos, I'll forward it to them. They'll upload it into this channel, so it'll be easily accessible for everyone to see. And this is just their little in-joke.
Expose the Wrongful Foreclosure TV.
All right. We're going to expose the wrongful foreclosure. So I personally, I need to start putting some of this information together and sending it to them. I'll try to do little short snips on specific properties and talk about the wrongful foreclosure. I've got the spreadsheets. I'll just maybe be able to do each one of those 18 if I have a chance. Anyway, people are stepping up. People are trying to get the information out. So send us your video. Just take your cell phone and just hold it in front of you and take a little video that you can email to us so that you can get on the air, and this can be sent out to the people that really do care, because we do have a lot of legislators that do care. They just need to know that their caring has a purpose, and if we can share that with them and give them more impetus to keep up the fight, that's really, really helpful. People get discouraged. They want to know that others are participating or helping or looking out for them. So send us those videos. And then this is Jed's aquaponic farm. He's the activist in Mendocino County that already sent out the links to all the supervisors. And this is his farm. I'm just so excited to see it. And of course, we're looking at how can we protect ourselves. So, never forget silver. Come on, guys. Come on. Have you noticed, by the way, I'm segueing, but silver is going down. Commodities are going down. Now is a very, very good time to buy before it just blows up. It's going to really gain a lot. And so I highly recommend you put at least some of your assets into silver. It's easily transportable and will help you down the road. So food. So we've got shelter. We're trying to keep our homes. And here's an explanation of what he's doing on his farm.
Well, my passion is surfing. Water's been in my blood. I live amongst it. I get energy from it. It's taken me around the world, and I find it very interesting that it's come full circle, and now I'm growing plants in water, and it's the core of my life. Aquaponics is the most sustainable form of agriculture.
All living things are made of 75% water. The surface of the earth is covered in 75% water. It is life. So it's important to save water and keep it clean.
It's a recirculating system. So the water flows out of the fish tanks, feeds the plants filter the water, and it flows back into the fish tanks. So aquaponics produces protein and vegetables in one system, and the only input is fish food. It uses 90% less water than growing in the ground because there's no seepage, very little evaporation. Our living gourmet salad mix has 5 types of lettuce growing out of one hole, and it's harvested with the root ball attached, so it stays fresh for 2 to 4 weeks.
A lot of people would like to get into agriculture, but they really don't have the space. But with aquaponics, you don't need soil, you don't need land, and you can grow on your balcony, in your window, on your countertop.
There's a lot of value that can be derived from living amongst nature. Raising the kids, seeing the life cycle. We harvest it, go to the farmer's market, they see the exchange, and so they see the value of the work that we do here. At the very core of it is the local economy. They see us generating something that our community needs, and they see that need and they see it being fulfilled.
Thank you, Jed. Thank you, Jed. It's so exciting to see, a real, actual producing aquaponics farm. This is his new business that he's running, and congratulations, Jed. We go for it. And I'm telling you, I'm very interested in aquaponics personally, to try my hand at it in my little backyard. Let's see if I can do something like that. You too. Like you said, you could actually just do this in the house or out in the balcony. It doesn't have to be a big spread. So I wanted to share with you update from Lorraine Souders. She's in Pennsylvania, and she's feeling better. She'll file her next opposition. Of course, the bank. She's in lawsuit, fighting the banks, trying to keep the house. And I want to read what she wrote. After that, I'll file my next opposition to their motion to dismiss. The judge still has not thrown it out, so I feel I might have a chance. If it does get thrown out, she'll file small claims court on them, or she'll appeal. If they want to take her house, they will have to go back to state court and file a brand new foreclosure action. So that's giving her some confidence and breather room. By that time, I'll be more seasoned to take them on better. Bet they are not looking forward to that. My friend in Minnesota, listen to this, fought foreclosure for 6 years, and she really did get her house. She just needs to fix the clouded title. So I asked her if she could be on the air and share about that. She didn't respond. These things come to me sometimes so late I can hardly get them on people on the show the next day or immediately. But that's why I want to focus next week. Okay, I want to hear about this lady in Minnesota that got the house. What did she do? How did it work? And how does she think she's going to fix the clouded title? These are major issues. The other thing I wanted to share is, please understand that the banks are continuing to push people into foreclosure. They are snagging. I have this vision of this whirlpool, and it's just sucking all the people into it, into the depths, because this is coming from a person who was never late and got a prospect mortgage in 2009 for $600,000, and that was in September. In October 2009, prospect transferred the loan service to GMAC, and they would not confirm or deny that the loan was assigned to Fannie Mae. In February 2013, so about 3.5 years later, GMAC payment history shows a principal balance of $494,000. GMAC sends a notice Feb 5 of servicing transfer to Ocwen. So now this person, this innocent paying borrower owner, has had her loan servicing now transferred to Ocwen, the offshore dragon. And so Ocwen sends a payoff statement in February. She asked for a payoff statement because she wants to pay off the loan. But the key is, who do I pay? And the worry is, if I send you the check, how do I know you're the right party? You're going to take the money. You're not going to ever send me a reconveyance, so the loan is still going to be sitting on the property. And somebody else is going to start foreclosure, I swear, because that's happened to too many people in this country. So she gets a payoff. In March, that was February this year, in March this year, Ocwen sends a notice of an escrow shortage. What she means is this is the impound account. This is the account for taxes and insurance, and now it's short. They and this disclaimer is on that notice. It actually states we may improperly classify a few contracts. So, okay, we're going to make a mistake. So just so you know, they're disclosing that they make mistakes. And, of course, you're to contact them if you think it's been incorrectly classified. So she sends a qualified written request. And they return, confirm the receipt. They send the documents. In April, she gets documents. In April, she talks to Greg, a supervisor at Ocwen, who promised to send a fax of the recorded reconveyance of the note from prospect to Fannie Mae. What arrived, of course, was a simple monthly payment. No reconveyance fax. So she speaks to Fannie Mae, who confirmed that they hold the loan, but was not able or willing to even tell her the loan number. He offered to escalate the case to some other email, but wouldn't provide a phone number, and said that Ocwen was the only one allowed to provide the Fannie Mae loan number. So on that same day, MERS confirmed that the loan was transferred to GMAC in 2009 and MERS. And on April 18, 10 days later, Ocwen sent a notice of a late charge for the April 1 monthly payment. She feels like she's being sucked down the rabbit hole, and I think she is. So now she's filed a complaint with the OCC about that. So in May, this is just 2 weeks ago, she received a response from the OCC that her issue is now with the FHFA. And so she made 3 months of mortgage payments online to Ocwen Servicing for X amount. And she received confirmation from Ocwen they got X amount, but that they only applied it to April and May. And that the amount for June, they applied towards principal reduction. Of course, that means, which she got in 3 days, that her loan was delinquent. Since it didn't apply the payment, now it's delinquent. They're playing the game, and how in the world is she supposed to make them do it right when they insist on defrauding her? And so now, of course, Ocwen sends another note. Now it's a different number. I've got a contact in LA who is just being driven to distraction because every time she calls, it's somebody different, and it's always a different number and always something different. They have stacks and mounds of paperwork which she diligently fills out, which she does over and over and over and over and over. It's just insane, and these people want to keep their houses, and this is the problem. This is still a huge, major problem, and the people get no justice. They're losing their houses to this fraudulent foreclosure scheme. And so now she's received an application from Ocwen for a loan mod. Oh my goodness. And all she wants is to pay it off, and they won't do it. Now, that brings me to this, and I mentioned this. This was written to me by another contact. Evidently, there's some rule, the banks made this up, that says that after a loan mod, you have to wait a certain number of years before you can refi. This person that my contact was talking to, she was not sure if it was 2, 3, or 4 years, but was going to research it and get back to her. And then the next email, she'd talked to Jed. Now, people, I've interacted with quite a number of you on this, saying, can you believe this? And the feedback I've gotten is, get Jed on the line and explain something to him. Let me tell you something. Jed is a loan officer that I refer business to because he knows what is going on. He's worked with these banksters. He's been a short sale negotiator. He's now representing a direct lender and all of the types of loans in the country. So there pretty much isn't a better loan officer that I've found, okay? He's an advocate. He said he is livid over this. So I have every confidence that Jed is going to climb through that phone line, and if anybody can solve it and get it straight, it's Jed. However, I'm not sure that Jed could do that, because so my client, this is a contact who wanted to say, hey, look, what's my house worth? And the fact is she might be able to get a refinance and get out of this bankster crankster loan. And turns out she had a loan mod 4 years ago. It happens to be Wells Fargo. And so now Wells Fargo, the underwriters, have said from Wells Fargo that she can never refi. So if you're considering a loan modification, this is probably going to come up. And it may not come up next year or the next year or the year after that. For her, it was 4 years later, and now they tell her she cannot refi. She checked her loan docs. She looked at the loan modification documents, and there's no wording of any sort anywhere that she cannot refinance. And so Jed has said, look, this is insane. And I'm telling you and everybody, they change the rules all the time, and nobody can make them work. This is why we must have criminal prosecution. We must we've got to chop off their feet so that they can't walk around and do this anymore. We've got to start getting them in prison. This is why it is very, very important. Please, print this. Give it to everybody you know. Plaster it up in the windows of your businesses in your town. Send this link to everybody on your email list. Put it on your Facebook page. Put it on your website. Pass it around the neighborhood. You don't have to say who it is. Just lay it on the people's steps. Because the bottom line is, this is the contact for, it happens to be California. But even if you're in a different state, you can print this and just handwrite on it the contact for your attorney general, and then make copies of that, because this information has to be used. If we don't use this, if we don't get this now, we're never going to get justice. I don't see how we can. Do you? How can, if this isn't going to stop them, I don't think anything will. We already know that the government agencies overseeing them are not going to stop them. They're just running protection for them. You know, they're just shielding these banks and large corporations for whatever fraud and games they want to play. And the only way that the people are ever going to get any justice is by actually going after them legally at a state level, ideally with the attorney general filing criminal charges, doing a grand jury investigation, and actually stopping the creation of this fraud. Because without the creation of the fraud, now let's think it through, if they had to stop, if they could not foreclose, then how likely do you think that she'd get a loan mod? Or she'd be able to refi? Probably pretty likely. The only reason they don't want her to refi, I swear, is hoping to push her into foreclosure. Frankly, at this point, I'm afraid, but I'm waiting to have her email me and saying, "Oh my goodness, they've screwed up my impound account." Because that's how they push people into foreclosure and a rolling default. That is where, when you make the payment and illegally they apply part of that money, that payment money, to their past fees that they've ginned up on you, so that you can never pay off your loan in full. So then next month you have more late fees. It's a rolling foreclosure. They keep you in foreclosure without telling you. And that way, they can start filing documents and stealing your home, and you're always in foreclosure, and they always make more fees and money off of each and every borrower. That is truly the outrage, and I'm sorry that that's the update for today, because it's true. That is the update. But here's our response. Here's our fight back. I was sent the citations of the week. This is what we are basing our hope and future on. These are 2 lawsuits, 2 judgments from the United States Supreme Court, or from the U.S. District Court, that fraud vitiates the most solemn contracts, documents, and even judgments. If there's fraud, vitiates means it ruins. Fraud destroys the validity of everything into which it enters. It affects fatally even the most solemn judgments and decrees, and we can rest our hope on this. Quote these lawsuits, quote these judgments, use these in your letters, use these in your OCC complaints, start threatening all the banks and the OCC with aiding and abetting delinquency. It's a conspiracy. This is RICO violations. We need to fight back, and while we do that, with one hand we're using a sword, parrying off the banks, but with the other hand, we really need to get the new paradigm going. So try to adjust your time. We all have limited time. But this is the technical details from the Positive Money website. I just really wanted to emphasize this page. It's a very good page. Covers the nitty-gritty details of money creation by banks. And you need to understand, they talk about, these are nice articles, 3 types of money, introduction to balance sheets, how central banks create money, how commercial banks create money, how payments are made, how money is destroyed, the money multiplier and other myths about banking, and how do banks become insolvent. These are very good articles. I highly recommend that you take a few minutes, even just one a day. Stick the link on a favorite, say, okay, I'm going to read about 3 types of money today. And just, it'll only take you 3 minutes. And then you can be mulling that over during the day. Plant the seeds into your consciousness, because the vast majority of money is not cash. It's a digital entry. And banks are not places where you put your money to keep it safe. So, work to take your money out of the bank into some other kind of a safe asset. And I really want to focus on that next week. How can we do that, and what does that look like as we follow these practices? And then just before we go, real quickly, here's the Public Banking Institute. We're having the convention. It's coming up in just 2 weeks. And then again, the link to the statewide grand jury investigation. Please share this with everyone you know. Let's bugger them, bugger them, bugger them. We have to keep the pressure up and keep letting people know that they have a choice. We do not have to play in their paradigm. So I'm constantly looking, how can we get out? How can we get out? How can we escape the paradigm and bring our new one to fruition? Thanks, that's it for today, and we'll see you next week. Send me your updates, send me your videos, send me your fraud. Let's bugger 'em. Talk to you next
They
week.
told me to fight for my civil rights, but it's always the same old story. The rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're murdered from every direction. The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax.
With nary a moment's reflection. When it's brass, there's muck, and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules. And if you're one of them, bugger you. And if you're one of them, bugger you. Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent.